Hello there, hope you guys are doing well. So this week is going to be kind of unique. We're not going to cover content. This week is completely dedicated to helping you get ready for your midterm paper that's due the week of the 11th. Okay? For my class, my asynchronous class, it's due on Sunday, October the 11th at 11:59. But this week, like I said, is just going to help prepare you for that. Okay, so one thing to really think about is that we're going to keep it simple, okay? I just want you guys to put together a 5-paragraph paper, and I'm going to show you in this video the very structured way to writing this, okay? All right, so the first thing is, this is just kind of a general outline, and exactly like all history essays they really should include, and this is like just a good practice to do. Yes, I know it's very systematic and structured. For a lot of you that struggle with writing is not your thing, you probably appreciate this. Okay, so those of you that are stronger writers, naturally you can obviously deviate from this. This is more designed for people that are struggle to like how to organize the paper exactly. So this kind of gives you a step-by-step. The first paragraph, what I usually like to see is some sort of historical context, opening it up, which I'll explain here in just a minute. And at the very end of the first paragraph, always the thesis and roadmap. The next 3 paragraphs are specifically the body paragraphs. These should be the reasons that were stated in the thesis, so that's critical to understand. And the last paragraph is just you restating your thesis in different words, all right, and also kind of highlighting some of your key ideas and maybe wrapping it up with some kind of synthesis to something other, something relevant later on in history or even to today. So either one of those is fine. So contextualization should be what you open with, really. And what it is it really kind of sets the stage for your essay and for your thesis. What I always tell my students to think about is, you're watching an episode on television and they do previously on, and it's an episode recap. So they basically tell you what happened in the episode previously to give you a better understanding of what's going on. That's what historical context is. Historical context is essentially what led up to those events. Okay, so what I usually tell people, general rule of thumb, go backwards in U.S. history, go backwards about 50 to 100 years. In general, what does the reader need to know in order to really understand the topic of the prompt? You usually want to do this in like 2 to 4 sentences, depending on the topic and the complexity of it. So let me give you an example of that, okay? Here's an example prompt. I'm sorry, I put that before the prompt. How did debates over slavery between 1830 and 1860 lead to the Civil War? So this is an example of how we would open it. It's not the thesis, it's the opening to it, the context. After the Revolutionary War, the United States formed, and all the United began to create their own regional identities. Although slavery was a large part of the Southern economy from its colonial beginnings, the Northern states abolished slavery and focused more on industrial growth and factories. This led to large debates over slavery between 1830 and 1860, which directly led to the Civil War. Now that could be part of my thesis, the one in the red, but you can see the sentences before it led up to that and easily transitioned into my argument. Okay, so it's like the story before it gives you that context. All right, moving on here a little bit. Now we're going to talk about the thesis, which is like the crux, the probably most important part of your paper, in a history paper particularly. Okay, so what you should do, first of all, is make sure you understand what the prompt's asking you. Okay, read over it, circle it, underline key phrases, rephrase it in your own words that make sense. That's another idea. And do a dump and brainstorm. I cannot emphasize this part enough, okay? It is really important that as you're thinking about it, to dump and brainstorm. And some of you guys are like, well, that's a time waster. I don't want to do that. I get that a lot, okay? What is a time waster is if you stare at a screen and you don't know what to write about. That is the time waster. Brainstorming is going to help you understand Kind of give ideas. What do I already know? What gaps do I have? What do I need to do further research on? And it also gives you ideas that you have written down. You know, sometimes you write something, you're like, what was I thinking? I know I came up with something. If you brainstorm, you already have it there on paper for yourself. So I highly encourage that. Okay, so how you should attack this. Historical thesis is going to be longer than what you might write in an English essay. And approaching historical writing is different than the way you'd approach history or an English essay. Mainly because, you know, English wants you to keep it super simple and not really go into detail. With history, we want you to go in more detail. So what I usually tell my students is it's not just a thesis, it's also a roadmap. So basically, what's the general outline? How are you going to prove your stance? Okay, so it's made up really of two parts. The first part is a direct response to the prompt. And the second part, I'm going to move myself up here a little bit, is the 3 reasons why. Okay, and I always tell my students do 3 reasons why, because each one of those reasons should represent body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and body paragraph 3. Okay, so it should be very simple. If you set up your thesis well, the rest of your essay is going to go extremely well. Okay, so here's an example of a thesis. Now, all 3 of these are actually acceptable theses. It just depends on your level of complexity. Okay, so let's look at the first one here. The American Revolution brought about change to American society. It brought about change through a new political system, to women through Republican motherhood, and through Hamilton's financial plan. So that's like very basic, but it does give 3 specific reasons. Those specific reasons, this is going to be body paragraph 1, this would be body paragraph 2, that would be body paragraph 3. Okay, and the next one, the American Revolution brought about change to American society. To the greatest extent, the American Revolution brought change through a new political system. Moderately, it brought about change to women through Republican motherhood, and it also brought change through Hamilton's financial plan, developing a new economic system. So just a little more elaboration on that one. Okay, so this one's the same as this one above here, but it has like the opposite reasoning skill. This actually brings in another level of complexity here if you want to do kind of like the counter argument. So however, the American Revolution brought little to no change for some groups such as African Americans and Native Americans. Okay. All right, so in your body paragraphs, your body paragraph comes from your thesis roadmaps, just like I said. It should be one of the reasons and then elaborated on. Open with a topic sentence. So a topic sentence is also known as a baby thesis. So basically, one way, you know, and you can explain that. You can do it as simply as that. If you are a more fluent writer and you can write it, you know, prettier, go ahead. But, you know, for those of you that are, you know, writing is a struggle, that will help you with it, okay? So basically, they call it a baby thesis because it's one of your points in your thesis that you wrote about, okay? Please note that on this paper, you do need to use at least 2 primary sources. That's part of the rubric. Okay, so in your body paragraph, if this is one of the paragraphs you're choosing to use a primary source as your evidence, you want to use it there, okay? And just a note on quoting in your body paragraphs. Quoting is okay, but you can't quote and just leave it there and expect the reader to interpret it. You have to interpret it. So tell me what it is, how that helps prove your thesis in that body paragraph. Okay, so when you get to the conclusion, restate your thesis in new words. Okay, don't just literally copy and paste it. Restate it kind of differently, taking a different approach. Summarize kind of your main arguments or key points, and then come up with some sort of like conclusion. Good way to kind of close it. Either could be some sort of connection to another time in history, or make it relevant somehow to today. Make some sort of connection. Okay. So you will need to do citations on a bibliography page. You can use either MLA format or Chicago Turabian. Purdue OWL, and this PowerPoint is on Canvas for you, so you can grab that link there, but it has great information on exactly how to lay that out. The library is actually a very good source too for help on this. Like I just previously said, you need to use 2 primary sources. You can use either your book and for the primary sources, or I also gave you a list of relevant topics or relevant sites to go to. Don't use Wikipedia. Don't use YouTube. Some of the information is good on there. Ask me about that. Okay, the exception to YouTube is crash courses are very good, for example. So they would be good for secondary source information if you needed that. But anyway, the last page, this should be on the last page after your paper. You should have a bibliography page that lists your citations and everything. And you need to use your 2 primary sources should be on your bibliography page, in addition to the citation in the body of the paper. But anything else you use outside of class. Okay, so if you did use your book for some help, you need to cite the book in there. Okay. Let me know if you have any trouble with this at all or any trouble in general. Send me an email if you'd like to set up a time to Zoom or talk about it. Please don't wait to the last minute or late at night, because I have a family too, but I am happy to meet with you one-on-one. Okay, good luck to you guys, and please let me know if you have any questions.